Let's bring in our panel. Dr. Eytan Cohen, a Turkey expert from the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, and Dr. Murat Aslan, a researcher in security and defense studies, joining us from Ankara in Turkey. Gentlemen, good afternoon. Dr. Cohen, I'll start with you. What does a move like this mean for Israel?
Well, we are seeing that the two countries are opening a new page. I think this is a very positive move. I think this is very much compatible with the spirit of the Abraham Accords. In this 2 or 3 years, we are seeing that Israel is mending her fences with the Arab countries in the Middle East, despite the fact that Turkey is not an Arab country and it basically pioneered the other Muslim states in recognizing the state of Israel since 1949. So we are now seeing also Turkey is going after the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, and we are talking about full ambassadorial level relations. And I think this will be the two countries will benefit from this act.
And Dr. Aslan, if we could get your take, since you are the security and defense expert. We know Israel and Turkey have been working together over the last couple of months to thwart Iranian attempts on Israeli citizens on Turkish soil. So did this type of cooperation help lead to this political decision?
For sure, because if the acts on the ground and the words of the politicians are positive in terms of emotions, or if they are supportive just to realize a common agenda, that means you can facilitate easily to interact the governments, interact the states. I think, yes, it promoted to establish a normalized link with Israel. On the other hand, I would like to remind one thing. If you want to have relations of two different countries being normal, there must be open channels of communication. You must have accessibility to the other party in terms of trade, economy, or tourism. And in the meantime, there must be no representation problem like ambassadors. So in this day, what I believe is that these two countries surpassed these difficulties. So in the coming days, right after this normalization, I believe that the channels of communication and accessibility of citizens to each other will promote more and more.
And Dr. Cohen, let's go to you now, since you are the Turkey expert. President Erdogan saying that the renewal of this will help our Palestinian brothers. What is Turkey's involvement with the Palestinians, with the Palestinian Authority, and how will they use this new move with Israel to help the Palestinian cause?
I would like to give you a concrete example. Recently in the Turkish media, it was reported that the West Bank Palestinians will be able to travel to Turkey via Ramon Airport. This is a very significant move because in the past, the West Bank Palestinians were traveling abroad only via Jordan, and they had many difficulties passing the Jordanian-Israeli border. But now it will be more convenient for them, more comfortable for them, and more profitable for them. So it's a win-win situation, and I think this is a direct consequence of the aviation agreement that Israel was pushing. I would like to remind that the Israeli aviation companies did not fly to Turkey since 2007, and it was all of this situation created a Turkish monopoly in the aviation market. Nowadays, Israeli companies are going back to the Turkish market, and it's a win-win situation because while the Israeli planes will fly to Turkey, at the same time the Palestinians will fly to Turkey as well in a more convenient situation. Also, we should not forget about the politics. For years, Turkey is playing this huge role of being the big brother of the Palestinians. So in the Turkish eyes, if there is a proper relationship between Israel and Turkey, then Turkey can basically lower the tensions between the two sides in favor of the Palestinians.
And then just a quick follow-up question for you, then we'll bring in Dr. Aslan on the same questions.
Sure.
Why in past years have these relations with the two nations gotten warmer? First, talk to us about when they went sour, and then why in the last few years they've gotten better.
We all remember when these relations got sour because of the Israeli Operation Cast-Lead in the Gaza Strip, and beforehand there was a very healthy dialogue between Israel and Turkey. Even Turkey was mediating between Syria and Israel, but later Mr. Erdogan had turned this relationship into a personal humiliation for himself, and that is why he decided to punish the Israeli leadership, starting from Ehud Olmert. And later we happened to see more Israeli operations in the Gaza Strip, and later we happened to see the Gaza flotilla, the Mavi Marmara incident. And as a result, we happen to see a free fall in the deterioration of the relations. And recently, what happened, in my opinion, is the Abraham Accords and the deterioration in the Turkish economy that basically pushed the Turks to mend their fences, not only with Israel, but with the United Arab Emirates, with Saudi Arabia, and they are also trying their best to mend their fences also with Cairo and even with Damascus. So why not with Israel? Because it is, again, very compatible to the spirit of the Abraham Accords. The Turkish economy needs investment, and that investment will most likely will come from the Gulf.
Dr. Aslan, I want to bring you in here and ask you what you think about Turkey potentially being an intermediary for groups like Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad when there are these conflicts with Egypt. We know historically, with Israel. We know historically Egypt has been quite the mediator when there is conflict between these two groups. So can Turkey now come in and play a similar role when there is war?
Well, if it's about intermediation or mediation, both parties must accept it. If any says no, that means you have to end it. If both Palestinians and Israel says, okay, please come here and just facilitate us communicating each other and try to, support us in finding a resolution. And even though it's not clear exactly what the incompatibilities are currently, well, Turkey may play that role. That's clear. On the other hand, there must be a political commitment by the politicians of both parties. So if it's to gain time just to, show up as if you are doing something in terms of peace and, reconciliation, well, it's something over there. But if both parties are really committed to find a solution to terminate this crisis, why not? It may be Turkey, it may be another country, a group of states, or an international organization, doesn't matter. I think not the Turkish intention, but the commitment and intentions of these two parties are important in this issue.
And then I want to ask you, Dr. Cohen, what's next after this normalization?
That's a huge question. I wish I had a crystal ball here to foresee the future. But I can only predict we may see an improvement in the relations in terms of trade, in terms of people-to-people relations. Maybe we will see more businessmen penetration into the Turkish market from the Israeli side. And I wish that we could also have see a Turkish tourism, visits to Israel, because I think this is the most important issue that the relations are lacking. We see that the Israeli tourists are visiting Turkey, but unfortunately we do not see that the Turkish tourists are visiting Israel, and I think this is the source of the prejudice against Israel in Turkey.
Well, we do know that a lot of Palestinians, a lot of Israelis go to Turkey because it is so cost efficient to go there on a vacation rather than going to different cities in Israel where the cost is quite high. So can we see even more of that? What can we see for the Turkish economy now that these relations are even warmer?
Let me tell you, a week ago I was in Turkey, and I also saw many Israelis in the streets, and given the fact that the two intelligence agencies tackled Iran's potential terrorist attacks, I think this security atmosphere will further boost the Israeli tourism into Turkey, which is again a win-win situation also for the Israelis and also for the Turks, because the Turks really need this income for their living, because also the cost of living in Turkey is very high. Maybe for the Israelis is relatively cheap because of the fact that the shekel, the Israeli currency, is very strong. And unfortunately here we are experiencing a severe expensive market. So wherever we go, this is very illogical, but wherever we go, we feel that we are like very rich people. But unfortunately in Israel, we do not feel as rich people, but abroad, yes, and especially in Turkey, of course.
And Dr. Aslan, I want to ask you a final question. Other than Iran, what are some similar threats that both Israel and Turkey face that they can work on together? We've seen Israel cooperate with other regional allies that they haven't necessarily had ties with, like some Gulf countries, including Saudi Arabia. So what can we see security-wise from these two nations, not just with their battle against Iran?
Well, security is something that's open to many different interpretations. Now, we are talking about military or hard security, though. There are some titles like soft security concerns, immigration, maybe environmental issues, etc. So in this case, Turkey and Israel does have a potential to cooperate in many different regional security concerns or issues, including or both hard and soft types. For instance, we are just at the east of Mediterranean Sea and sharing the same sea land. That means we have to cooperate, for instance, just to praise the environmental protection. There are some countries in the region, and we know that they have problems, and Turkey and Israel may build a joint action plan, joint program on how to engage with them. Or we can just contribute each other as two different countries in resolving the other problems or indirect problems. For instance, Turkey is concerned with the Greek atrocities, Greek expansionist policies, in the words of Turkish politicians. Well, Israel does have relations with Greece. That means if such sort of joint acts and words are somehow realized, why not? We can proceed more easier.
Dr. Eytan Cohen and Dr. Murat Aslan joining me this afternoon on the breaking news: Turkey and Israel completing the normalization of relations between the two nations.